So hi everyone, my name is Emily. I work for JFCS in a lot of different capacities. My title is that I am the volunteer manager of JFCS. So that means I run all of our volunteering programs. I also run a lot of our youth programs that focus on service. And I know that summer work readiness experience focuses a lot on service and giving back to the community too. So at JFCS, we really believe that service and giving back to your community is a great opportunity for learning and empowerment for teens and for all people, really. We try to have a really inclusive model at JFCS with volunteering, which means that our teens who are in Work Ready or in our other programs are volunteering with our clients. Maybe they're people with disabilities, maybe they're older adults, maybe they're Holocaust survivors, and that all the groups that come to JFCS, whether to learn or to receive services, are all intermingling with each other, getting to know each other, and that creates a sense of community. It creates a sense of inclusion, and it really allows people to learn about each other's lives and talk to people who they might not talk to and kind of share the commonalities in each other's experiences. And that's really important. So I wanted to talk today. Melissa and I looked at a list of careers that you guys are interested in, and a lot of people are interested in stuff having to do with nonprofits. So that might be yes, making connections. That's excellent. So that might be doing so in a role like administration role or fundraising. So I want to talk about all those jobs because I kind of do a mixture of all of those jobs. And Melissa, let me know if my internet cuts out because I'm in rural Maine right now. So my internet is not the best. So I wanted to talk about those jobs, and then I wanted to talk about just careers in general and what you guys are interested in learning about, because Melissa and I have a cool idea for the fall that we want you to share. So at any time while I'm talking, if you guys want to ask me questions, you can put them in this chat. You can shout them out. I don't know what your rules are about hand raising. I don't really care about hand raising. You can shout it out at me, or Melissa, if you have questions, if people are feeling shy that you want to ask, we can talk about that too. So I guess I'll start talking about my career and how I got into it, since I know there's a lot of career interest in that. I went to college. I majored in philosophy, actually, which is useless. But if it's something that you enjoy, pursue it. Go take out loans. That was my mistake. And you could do a great career after. But I always knew that I wanted a job helping people in some way. I thought originally I was interested in being a drug and alcohol counselor. I was interested in being a social worker and get my social worker degree. But after college, I felt like, and you guys might feel this way too, I sort of felt like a lot of my peers had a lot of experience when I graduated college. They had done internships, they had done all these specialized jobs. And I really felt like a lot of that came from being around people who had a lot of privilege. And I didn't have that growing up. And my parents didn't, have the connections to get me into great internships or even really know that internships were going to help me. I always worked every summer to make the money that was going to put me through college, the next year. When I was a teenager, I worked every summer as a camp counselor, and that kind of gave me a background in working with young people and working with youth. I worked at a youth science camp for a while with middle schoolers, so I sort of had the youth background, and I wound up getting a job at the Jewish Federation in Boston, which is a Jewish nonprofit that gives funding to other Jewish organizations. Like we receive funding, JFCS, from a Jewish federation. And I worked in their department that did caring and social justice programs. So that was programs that focused on poverty, focused on people with disabilities, focused on older people. And I was in the planning department, which meant that I was helping to allocate out funds to organizations that needed them. They would apply and we would give funds. From there, I moved to working for the city of Boston, which had 35 different community centers. And I did a lot of different things there. My specialty was planning, which means planning programs and fundraising for programs specifically focused on health and wellness and youth violence prevention. So that was doing a lot of work with our gang intervention program, working with kids who had experienced violence in some way, like maybe themselves or a family member had experience with violence, and getting them into therapy and going on retreats and going through the healing process. So I got a lot of experience with young people that way too. And I also ran a program called Family Little Kids. And that program focused on health and wellness, like playing together, working with college age volunteers. So that's how I sort of got working with volunteers. And then coming to JFCS, I took over a bunch of our.
You froze for a second.
On learning about fundraising and philanthropy.
You froze for a second.
Yeah.
You froze for a second. If you want to just like repeat that last sentence.
What was the last thing I said, Melissa?
You're talking about when you came to JFCS.
So when I came to JFCS, I took over our Teen Empowerment Program, which is a program where kids volunteer with our clients and focus on fundraising. And also our Junior Board, which is a program that has a lot of kids who are in summer work readiness, as well as kids from other sources. We come together every month. We learn about a different program of JFCS, whether it be grocery delivery, it be a training with our LGBTQ educator, whether it be working with our people with disabilities, so that kids kind of get a flavor for everything that we do. But we also rely on them for their expertise, because teenagers have a lot of expertise, especially because we run programs for teenagers. We need to hear from you guys as really the experts and yourselves to inform our programming and what we do. So that's sort of my background. It was kind of a long and winding road, which is to say, if you want to get into a career working with youth, there are a lot of different ways to do it. I would say that my favorite part of my job working with young people is really to see the kind of connections that they make with our clients, and also the learning in themselves that comes up through service that is so meaningful to me. Like, for example, I have a kid who's in my middle school program, and with his friends, just doing like activities as a group. He never really paid attention. He always wanted to talk about sports. He always wanted to goof off. And I kind of was like, oh, this is a kid. Maybe he has some behavior issues. He's, not the best behaved kid. He might not be the most dedicated. But then as soon as we worked with the clients, regardless of the group, whether it was people with disabilities, whether it was little kids from our adoption program, 3 or 4-year-olds, he was so caring, he was so accommodating, he was just really sweet and tender with the clients. He gave them so much attention, really beyond what you would expect from a 13-year-old boy, and just seeing that transformation in him and what service brought out with him was so special to me. And even like other adult staff people would come up to me and they would say, oh, this kid is amazing. And it was just, I remember I went back to his mom and I was like, your son is getting all these compliments, because I felt like that might not even be a side of himself he shows at home. And then I would say the most challenging thing about getting into youth work, I would say, is, first of all, it can be frustrating when you're working with kids from neighborhoods that are, you know, under-resourced. You know, you just want to give them everything. And like a lot of youth work is having to be really resourceful, and you know, coming up with new ideas. You might not have the time, you might not have the money, people might have different limitations, and you always have to make it work. So that's a challenge that comes with doing youth work. And I'm sure the rest of the staff can speak to that too. But it can be really rewarding when you figure it all out. So does anyone have any questions about working with youth, working with teens, or even just working with a nonprofit? You guys can type them into the chat. You can ask them out loud, or if no one else has questions, maybe some of the staff can throw some questions at me that I can answer.
People have been using the chat a lot, so we'll give it a second to.
Let the chat cook, let it simmer.
Yeah, let it simmer. So while we're waiting for that, Emily, I just want to say it's interesting, a lot of the overlap between how I got involved working with young people, but I also wanted to say that a lot of my work with young people have been through church, my church, as well as through working with my own children and kind of getting involved with them and their friends. So as you can do youth work like throughout your whole life, even professionally or volunteer, but as Emily said, it is very rewarding. It's very rewarding. That's why I love this. No questions, but Zenelia says,
oh, I see this one.
you see that one?
Oh, sorry, Melissa, I cut you off.
It's
No
okay.
questions, but I like to work with kids too. And the younger kids now are way more aware than we were when we were younger.
Yes.
I would say that you guys are so much more aware than when I was a teenager, you know, or in your space like 15 years ago. And it's so amazing to really see how smart this generation is, how passionate, how aware you are of stuff like social justice and your own rights and treating each other with kindness. And I know, for example, Galia, and have they met with Galia yet, Melissa?
Yes, they have.
Galia, yeah, so she does staff trainings, LGBTQ trainings with JFCS staff, and people have so many questions for her. And sometimes it's like people, you know, who are older of generations have a lot of questions. There's so much new information that they're not getting. And then when we did the training with the junior board, it was like everything clicked. Everyone wanted to know more, or they had their own contributions, or they had stuff to teach us. So it's really inspiring. And I think that, you know, there's so much that can be a little bit discouraging right now in the world with COVID, global warming, all this different stuff, the political situation. But when I work with your generation and the younger generation, it makes me feel very hopeful. And that is, you know, another great benefit to working with youth. And I'll also say, Melissa, that even if it's not your career, all of you in your lifetime will have the opportunity to do a form of youth work, whether it's nieces and nephews or friends of your kids that you eventually have, or people from your community. We all have the opportunity to be a mentor to one another. So I think, you know, it's something that we all do in our lives, and some people it just clicks for them. And I worked with a woman when I was in Boston, and she was a gang violence interrupter, and she herself had been in a gang. And then she started working with youth who had been in gangs. And she said, when I started doing that, that's when I realized I was living my purpose. And that has always stuck with me. Like, you realize that's your purpose in life, is working with kids. So it really clicks for some people. I think it's wonderful. Does anyone have any other questions about youth work, working with nonprofits? Or anyone else on the staff want to say why they like it as a career, or any tips about getting into it?
Well, I'll speak.
Yeah, thanks, Art.
Hi, my name's Art Russell. Um, I started working with youth when I was about 14. I started working day camps as a counselor, and then I went on to doing basketball camps because I played basketball and I thought I was very good, and had the opportunity to work with kids in basketball due to my coaches. Both of them were probation officers, and they work with at-risk kids. So I took a liking to that. And then in 1993, I was in school and I was an accounting major, and something traumatic happened in my life. My brother was killed. So I changed my whole major to work with kids that were at risk, that were sort of in situations like I was when I was growing up. And I've been working with them ever since. So some of them didn't have to go down the path that my brother went down, or some of the friends that I knew that went down. So I try to steer them away from some of the things in the streets that were going on. So that's why I've been working with kids for over, I think it's at least 20 years now. So that was why I really got into working with kids.
I also wanted to say, if this is something that you're interested in, a great way to test it out is being, Art said at the very beginning, camp counselor. Excellent job for seeing if youth work is something that you like. And also, the various age groups are very different. Some people really click with working with little kids and they love little kids. Some people's passion is working with teens. Middle school is a very specific age, and some people like really love working with middle schoolers. And then some people have, like some people are like, oh, teenagers, I can't handle it, so it's good to kind of figure out, youth work is a big umbrella, but youth is anywhere, from 4-year-olds to 18-year-olds, even older, honestly. So you want to figure out what you like. Caitlin Rodriguez, my friend, asks, what's the hardest thing about youth work, with any? Okay, I would say during the pandemic, the hardest thing has been Zoom. That is nobody's fault. I would just throw in a shout out to Melissa for turning your cameras on. It is so important. It's both important to creating a sense of cohesion in the group, but also like us youth workers, we are human, and it is, so painful to just talk to an empty screen. So that would be one minor thing. What would be another hard thing about youth
Lay
work?
your mommy nightstand drawer, okay?
I don't know. It really depends on the group that you work with. I do a very varied job, so I'm not working with young people all the time. I think you have to have really good boundaries, especially when you're working with youth who might have challenges in their lives for whatever reasons, whether they be challenges at home or mental health challenges, like you have to have the boundaries that allow you to understand that you can't change every young person's life, that you can't bring every person to success, and there are so many factors in that, and so you really have to have the boundaries, and you really have to take care of yourself. Self-care is really important. Taking care of your mental health is really important. You care so much, and at the end of the day, you kind of have to go home and forget and put it out of your mind, which seems so antithetical to what you're doing. So I would say self-care is a big challenge for people. Yeah, like Melissa said, losing young people that you've worked with is traumatic. It's traumatic for all people when you have a relationship like that. So that's why self-care is really important. Charlene has a hand up.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm one of the staff with JFCS. I work in the ELECT program, and I just wanted to share my story. I fell in love with the social work case management field at the age of 8. I had a cousin that was in foster care, and just how the social worker interacted with me and my cousin, I knew then that day that I wanted to be a social worker. I knew that. And my cousin was in foster care at Methodist Family Services up on Monument Road. And my goal was to be employed by them, in which I met that goal because I was employed by them and I was a foster care worker. But as we started this year's summer work, we one of the representatives spoke about having a job and having a career. I had a lot of jobs, but I held on to my passion. I didn't become a social worker or a case manager until later on in life after I had my children. But I'm so satisfied that I met that desire. I knew at age of 8 that I was going to be a social worker. I took many different steps, and which in life we do go through many different steps. But you know what your passion is, what type of career you want, where you want to go, and it's just something that you have to keep working at it, keep working at. And for those that are thinking about working with youth, I just want to say this. Community College of Philadelphia has an excellent youth program for youth, for students to get certification, to get their bachelor's, I mean, not bachelor's, but the associate degree, and as a youth worker. They have an excellent program. And I went through community college, and it just it just helped me fulfill my dream of becoming a social worker. So I just want to share with y'all, hold on to your passion, whatever you want to be. People may laugh and say, hey, you're not going to be a nurse. Your grades is horrible. But you have to make a start. If your start to becoming a nurse is becoming a, what do they call it? I can't think of the name. An aide, you start that process of becoming a nurse, because that part only leads to more training, to more certification. And then you say, hey, I have enough. I can go to Jefferson and apply for their nursing program. So just hold on to your passions. And I thank you. I'm sorry.
No, I don't apologize. Thank you, Charlene. That was very helpful.
I love that, Charlene. And I was the same way. Like when I graduated college, I didn't really know what to do with my life. And at my first job, I was, making photocopies. I was ordering a lot of sandwiches. I was getting yelled at a lot about the sandwiches that I ordered people, but I knew that I was on the right path. And I met people who gave me guidance, who gave me mentorship, and saw the opportunity in me. And they really helped me get to the next level of my career and gave me the opportunities to work with people and do what I'm passionate about. So that's something I would say too, that I think applies to really any career as well. So if there are no other questions about
one thing, this is great. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just go back to what Art had shared, and that is a lot of times the traumatic experiences that impact us, things that happen to us, things that happen around us, can be the very thing that draws us into working with other people. And so a lot of times you're like, why is this happening to me? Why is my life so hard? Why, why are my parents like this, or my community like this? But sometimes we have to take a step back and say, oh, it is what it is, but what good can come out of it? So sometimes, like what Art was saying with his brother, he could have, and I'm sure he grieved and different things along that line, but he could have gone into a situation where he just stayed angry, where he just went to a long-term depression and just different things, and just kind of cut himself off. But he used that, what I assume to be a painful, very painful situation, and allowed it to be a catalyst and get him into working with other people to prevent that from happening. So when you look at your own situation, sometimes you're like, oh man, I have like the worst situation, but you can take what you've learned in that situation to help other people. I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. And you guys, oh, sorry, Art, go ahead.
And what I was going to say something else, but I had left it up. My brother was killed on December 14th, 1993. I was writing a term paper to complete my associate's degree at community college on gun violence in the city of Philadelphia that I had to report on, a verbal report on 12/15 the next day. It was less than 24 hours after I had finished my report. I actually had finished my report and was going to my mom's house when I found out my brother was shot. And to come back to today is 2021, and we're still having that same type of violence still go on. And it's kind of every time I turn on the news, and I try to make sure that when I turn on the news and they say it's Philadelphia, first thing I say, I hope it's none of the kids that I'm working with. One. And then I pray that whoever was a part of the violence, that they don't die, or they're just injured or something like that. And it's like, it just keeps repeating. And it seems like sometimes we're not doing enough, but I keep being reminded from one of my old mentors that as long as you can help one child, that's good enough. I wish I could help them all, but as long as you reach one, that one might reach two, and so forth. So that's just my passion, where like, that keeps me motivated to work with kids. You're not going to get paid a lot. You're not going to get a lot of glory or anything from that, but it will help you out to feel good inside that you're helping one child. I look at some of the kids that I work with now. I actually had the opportunity to work with one of the kids that was part of our program when I was younger, when I first started working. He actually came and worked at the old agency that I was working at. Now he started his own little foundation nonprofit. So I look at that as being a success.
Yeah. 2 thumbs up to that. So if there are no more questions, what we're going to transfer into is talking a little bit about a plan that Melissa and I have for the fall. I know that you guys have had some people come in and talk about careers with you, and we want to keep that going for the fall, bringing in people who are experts in their fields, interesting careers, and having them talk to just those who are really interested, and being able to have a real conversation with them about what they do, especially if it's a field that you're thinking about getting into, that you can have advice starting now, and not figure it all out on your own. Because like I said, you know, for me, and I don't know if for the other adults you feel like this is true, I didn't really feel like I had there was no roadmap to what I wanted to do, or I couldn't find it easily. So to start out at your age to understand, okay, this is what I want to do to go to school, and maybe I don't have to take out, you know, all these loans when I could go about it this way or that way, or this is a great program that's in Philly. So to really get that feedback at this age, and also talk to people who are in really interesting careers. So whether it be bringing in someone who's a fashion designer, or, you know, for example, my sister-in-law, she works at NASA. She runs the Twitter for the moon. I think that's a cool job. She's the voice of the moon. And so that everyone can have more intimate conversations where you feel comfortable asking the questions that you really want to ask, and kind of getting advice in a smaller setting, so that I understand it's totally nerve-wracking to talk to a huge group. This is 34 people, but if you're just talking to other people that have kind of your same interests, that can be really great. So that's something that Melissa and I are planning on for the fall. But I wanted to hear from you guys, and I know she got a list at the beginning of the summer, but I know also as summer goes on, stuff changes, what you're interested in, what careers we can bring in, what type of people that you want to bring on. So raise a hand or type it in the chat. Maybe why don't we say we'll take 2 minutes for everyone to think of 3 careers they might be interested in, and then we'll type them in the chat and kind of see where the group is at, if that works. So 10:32, we will talk. Everyone just brainstorm for a little bit. Yes, and Melissa said 85% of jobs are filled through networking, and that's absolutely true. It is all about who you know. So that's really important. All right, we have 1 more minute at the clock. Okay, guys, so if you want to start dropping into the chat, what careers you're interested in. Remember, this is for your benefit too, because once I get these ideas, I can start reaching out to people and bringing them in and make sure it's people that you're really interested in who can really help you.
Could we also just like say it or?
Of course, Caitlin.
Okay. So, as you know, Emily, recently I got really interested in becoming an art therapist. So that since has like been my push to become an art therapist and kind of looking into like all the degrees I need to get for that. Another career I was interested before art therapy was being a book illustrator, so like a children book illustrator. That was, since I'm like an artist, I just really was drawn to that, or graphic designer. And last one was a media creator, because I do internships with WHYY as like a youth person there, and I got really into, you know, making films and kind of like portraying people's story in a new and creative way.
So I want to give a great example of networking right now. So which Melissa said is so important. So I agree. So I know Caitlin, she's on the junior board, and she has come to JFCS in the past and sat in on some of our art therapy classes to get an idea of that career. But my mother-in-law actually used to be a children's book editor. So in my mind, I was like, oh, if Caitlin ever wants to talk to my mother-in-law about that career, they can totally talk. So Caitlin, I'll send you an email about that privately, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but what I'm saying is, here's an example of networking in action and what we're trying to do for you guys. When you share what you're looking for, what your intention is, people around you can make all these connections that can be really helpful. So that, I think, calls back to what Melissa was saying as well. So I'm going to read aloud what people have shared. This is such a great example. So entrepreneurship, that seems really big, and there are so many entrepreneurs in the Philadelphia area that we can bring in. Maybe we can bring in a couple at once so that you can hear about different careers that people are doing with entrepreneurship. Physiologist, hairdresser, or art teacher, that's excellent. Accounting, engineering, entrepreneurship, hairstylist, marine biologist, that's super cool. Fashion designer. My next door neighbor works for the Council of Fashion Designers of America, and she helps actually put on the Met Gala every year. So I already talked to her, she would be interested in doing something. So that would be very cool, Imani, if we could set that up. Psychologist, accountant, veterinarian, writing, business, acting, and theater. Hannah, one of our staff people, Claire Moyer, actually is a theater director. And She would be an awesome person to talk to the group. Lawyer, business, nursing, carpenter, architect, football player. Derek, I know you love football, business, shoe designer. So that's another fashion design thing. Child psychology, BAU. I don't even know what that is. If you guys want to put that in the chat, real estate agent. So, oh, what else do we have? General surgeon, marine biologist. All right, so marine biology is popular. Therapist and cosmetologist, skincare formulator. That's really cool. I love skincare. Melissa, I'm going to copy paste everything in the chat so that I have this list, because I don't want to forget anything. It's interesting to see that you guys have a lot in common, which is really nice. Like, you're a group. Oh, you had a fishologist. That is so cool. So you guys are like learning a lot. Open a hair and nail salon and run a clothing line. Okay, so I'm definitely bringing in my friend with fashion design. So this is kind of our plan for the fall. If you guys think of something else, just shoot a line to me and Melissa, and we're hoping that we can start this up in the fall, and that you guys can really get that advice and do that networking. And you know, this is really just the start, because when you talk to people, they're going to have connections for you as well as people that you can talk to. Oh, Tamar, behavioral analysis unit. Tamar, do you want to share what that is? I don't even know what that is.
Oh, I was just telling you what BAU is. That wasn't like what I had put up there, but
oh,
that's I know it from Criminal Minds.
Criminal Minds. Okay. Oh,
like I don't know if it's as extreme
like a
as
profiler, kind of.
Yeah, profiles. Yeah, like so I don't know if they do
like working for the FBI,
but stuff like that. Yeah,
that sounds
super cool. Yeah, like these are such interesting careers that you guys are into. And also, while I'm here, beyond that, I also wanted to give a plug for the junior board. You will have later in the summer, Brianna Torres, who is our new amazing junior board staff person, will be coming in and doing an intro to the junior board activity. We have some junior boarders on this call right now. I see Derek, Tamar, Caitlin. I don't know if Adriana is on. They can give you some info. Yep, I see Adriana. They can give you some info as well on that program, but that's another program where you, if you're interested in youth work, in service work, learning more about JFCS, and not just youth work, but working with people with disabilities. I know Adriana's really passionate about that. Working with older adults, working with people who are just in need, whether it be mental health, in need of financial services, really anything that JFCS does, you can get more hands-on experience through that program. It's gonna meet now in person, which is excellent. Hopefully, my fingers are crossed so that you guys can really get face-to-face time with our clients from other programs. And kind of what I think is so great about that program is it really connects people to passions that they might not even know that they have. And sometimes when you work with a new group of people, it just really clicks, you know, and you're just like, wow, like I love this. Like this is for me. Like, for example, like I do all these youth programs, but when I work with our adults with disabilities, like that is really like when my heart feels like so happy. I'm like, this is just like awesome. And I know a lot of the kids in the program feel that way too. So if you're interested at all in helping people, that's a great program, but it's also a leadership program, a youth empowerment program. Bree, who we're bringing on, is so awesome. And so if you're interested in, if you feel like, you know, I want to be able to stand up in front of a group and talk in a powerful way, if you want to lead your peers, if you want to be seen by other people in your community as someone that they can really come to when they're having problems, if you feel like you could use some help communicating with people, with your interpersonal relationships, we're going to be working on all of that too, with the end goal. We're hoping, keeping our fingers crossed right now with everything, that the youth who are in the program are going to be able to lead programs themselves by the end of the year. So you guys, kids your age, leading programs for our kids who are in the Camp Mariposa program, which is for younger kids dealing with a parent who has addiction issues. And so you'll really go through that program and feel like at the end that you can be a leader in your community. So I just want to give it a plug, because it's early in the summer and people are thinking of what they're doing for fall, but that's a commitment that's really once a month, one Sunday. We're going to help you with transportation, with getting around, you know, and I wanted to make a plug for the program too. So if anyone has any questions about that, drop them in the chat. You can email me afterwards. I'm happy to talk about that, or let Melissa know and she can connect us. So does anyone have any other questions about anything that we talked about today? I am more than happy to answer. Melissa says that that's how she feels about social work.
About summer work ready. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
summer work ready. Yeah. You know, it just is like, and you can see it too. It just is. And you guys are so great too. Like, I know, like last summer, Melissa and I were talking and she's like, everyone just wants to do more. And I think that's fantastic. So I think you guys already really are leaders to be spending your summer doing this, you know, like when it's hot out and there's so much you can be doing. I think that's really special. So you all should feel really good about yourselves already.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I don't have anything else. Looking in the chat, I don't see any.
Oh, Melissa, I wanted to do one other plug too.
Sure.
I am also the volunteer manager for all of JFCS. So if you guys ever want to volunteer on your own, whether it be we pack groceries every week, we do pop-ups and clothing sorting for our closet, we do in your neighborhood resource fairs, which Melissa, they're going to be doing later this summer.
Yes,
Or
that's right.
even if you are like, oh, I'm home, but I want to do something, we can have you call our clients and do surveys. We can have you have a friendly caller. So I'm always happy to work with teens however they want. If they want a custom volunteering opportunity that maybe they do on their own or work on their own project, please just reach out to me. I work with teens all the time. And teens are doing, I'll just give some examples too of stuff that teens have done on their own this year because I'm very inspired by it. We have one teen, her name is Ella. She was a senior in high school, and this year she has delivered groceries for us every week. Since the pandemic began, she's probably delivered groceries for us more than 40 times, which is probably like, she's probably delivered over 1,000 bags of groceries, which is enough to make you feel really proud on your own. But she came to me one day and she said, Emily, I deliver groceries for this woman. She is a Holocaust survivor. She's in her 90s. She's from Russia. And when I dropped off her groceries today, she said next week is her birthday and she's not going to be able to see anyone because of the pandemic. Would it be okay if I put together a birthday surprise for her? And I was like, of course. And we got a card signed by the staff. We got balloons. She brought a cake and she was able to drop them off to her on her birthday. And it was so sweet. And I think it's just an example of someone going so above and beyond. And it's something, even as a staff person, you know, I deal with grocery delivery for 200 clients a month. You don't have the time to be so thoughtful and conscientious, but it's really volunteers coming in and going that extra mile who create connections. So I thought that was really sweet. We've had teens who are doing their senior service projects with us and volunteer with us to get community service hours, and that they have such a good time that afterwards they've just been like, hey, can I bring in a group of my friends in and we just sort clothes for you on a Sunday? And that's something that they initiate on their own. They're not getting school credit. They'd all graduated college. You know what I mean? They weren't, you know, it wasn't to impress anyone. It was just something that really connected for them. And they're like, I think we'd have fun doing this. So again, talking about youth work, that's something that really warms my heart, and is really special.
Yes.